Hey guys, I know this is a little bit strange, but we've decided to give you guys some online lessons, which I think is a pretty good idea. And today I'm going to be doing a bit of CPR with you because it's a bit of a fun lesson, and it's a good one to get started with because we haven't focused on it too much. I guess I wanted to go more in depth and get you guys to just take a few notes, doesn't have to be much, and to I guess just try and get it in your head, the whole concept, so that when we come back you kind of know what's going on, and also to just have a bit of a go in your room. I'm going to give you a really easy way to give it a go, have a bit of a fun try. I was going to just quickly explain to you why we give CPR, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand, like, yes, I know what CPR is, but they don't understand why we do it. So that's purely for the reason that when someone's heart stops, their blood obviously stops flowing, and the idea of CPR is to keep pumping the blood to the vital organs. So your brain, obviously, your heart, to keep that pumping, and to all your vital organs like your kidneys, your stomach, all that sort of stuff, so that you're still living. So the aim of CPR is to keep doing that, but obviously we can only do it for so long before they need to start doing it on their own again. Again, when we breathe into their mouth, that is to provide them with oxygen, to provide their brain with oxygen. So that's a really important thing to know, I think, when we go into learning about CPR, is to just know even the very on the surface layer about why we do it, and so people understand that we're not just breaking people's ribs for no reason. So that was the first thing. But the first thing is 30-2 ratio. So that means 30 compressions to 2 breaths. So most of you probably know this, and we've probably gone over it in our Doctor's ABCD lessons, but it means we're going to give them 30 compressions depending on a bunch of other things, and then 2 breaths. Usually we would use a mask when we're practicing and that sort of stuff, but we don't have mannequins at the moment, so we probably won't worry about the breaths too much today because it's not as easy a thing to do from home. But we will talk about 30-2, the ratio. We will also talk about the chest depth. Now this is a bit hard the way that we're going to do it because we don't have the proper mannequins that measure chest depth for you. But we'll talk about how far that we should be pressing into a person's chest, and also talk about how, like, what the differences are between doing CPR for an infant, for a child, and for an adult. So there are some things that vary, that we'll briefly talk about, just so you kind of get the understanding of what to do and not to do with the different age groups. Okay, so the idea today is for you guys to grab a pillow from your bedrooms, and it sounds really strange and really weird, but this was kind of the only idea that I could come up with. So we're gonna get a pillow and we're gonna practice on a pillow. Now if it's like a little bit firmer, that's okay, but memory foam, I tried and didn't really work for me, so I'm just using a pillow, and then I'm using the ground as kind of a marker for the chest depth and how far I'm going down. It's not quite accurate, but it works better than nothing. So grab a pillow and then we'll do a bit of a practice and then we'll be done. Okay, so I've got my pillow, it's literally just from my bed, so just grab a pillow from your bed. We're going to talk about the position of your hands first. So at the moment, the way that I do it is by putting one hand on top of the other and clamping the top one like this. I just find that most comfortable. Some people find it better to do this, some people find it better to do this. It just really depends on what's comfortable for you, so I'm going to do this, so pick whatever you want to do. I'm going to do it a little bit to the top of the pillow. So if you think about this being the head up here, and this is what we call the sternum, and then it's kind of halfway down the sternum, and this would be the rest of their torso, okay? So I'm going to do it about here, and what we're going to do is we're going to push down until we feel the floor, and that's what I'm going to call an adult's chest depth for you. It's 1/3 of the chest depth. So we're going to go down and we're going to touch the floor, and that's when we know that we've gone down as deep as possible. We're going to do 30 of those and then pretend to give a couple breaths and then keep going. So we'll do a couple, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Then we pretend to give them a couple breaths. So we go 1, wait for the chest to rise, 2, and then we do another 30. Okay, so one thing I really quickly wanted to note was how to bear your weight when you're giving CPR. So a lot of people think you can just lean back and just kind of use your arm weight and that will be enough. But the way that's best to do it is to use your body weight to use the most strength that you can, because obviously you want the most strength that you can, especially if you're doing it on someone who's bigger than you. You need all the help that you can get. So the best way to do it is to obviously have your arms, but you're going to be leaning over them on your knees, and you're going to be putting all of your body weight when you do a compression. So it's just the easier way, and you get a lot less tired, a lot less quick if you use your whole weight instead of just trying to use your arm power. Okay, so the best way I remember what chest depth means, because everyone talks about this 1/3 and what does it really mean, the best way that I can remember it is imagine somebody lying flat on the ground, and you divide their middle part, if you're looking at them this way, you divide their middle part into 3 different compartments. So that's our 3 sections, and when we're talking about compressions, we want to almost fill that top segment. So we've got our 3 segments, and when we do compressions, we go down and we go down completely through that first segment, but we try not to go any further. So that would be 1/3 of the chest depth. If you hear that, that's what it means. So we talked about the 1/3 of the chest depth, and we talked about the 30 to 2. Those are 2 things that are very important. Now we have to talk about also how much we have to do and how long for. So the aim, about the speed of how we do it, is 5 to 6 cycles. So 5 to 6 of that 30 to 2 breaths within 120 seconds, which is 2 minutes, obviously. So it's good to time yourself. You put on a 2-minute timer and count how many cycles you do. And once you get to around 5 or 6, that's pretty much when you've hit the mark. And a lot of you may have heard of a couple songs that help when it comes to CPR. So there's another one, Bites the Dust, and Staying Alive. It's really good if you are practicing, and when I get you guys to go away and do a bit of a practice, is to just put on that song or either of those songs and do it for the duration of the song to get into the rhythm, to get into the feel of it, and it gives you a really good practice. Okay, so the next big thing that is a little bit more confusing is the differences when you give CPR to an infant, to a child, and to an adult. So I want you to take a couple notes on this. I'm not going to go too in depth, but I do want you to take a few notes. So we'll talk about chest depth first with all 3. So all 3 are exactly the same. We only go 1/3 of the chest depth for an infant, a child, and an adult. So that just depends on how large you are. So obviously as an adult you are bigger than an infant, so the 1/3 of your chest is enough for you, whereas on an infant, the 1/3 of an infant's chest is enough for them. It's obviously going to vary in size, but it's still 1/3. So that chest depth doesn't change for any of them. The next thing we talk about is how many hands we use when we're giving CPR for the different age levels. So when we're giving CPR to an infant, we use 2 fingers, and we're going to push down on their chest and do the same 30 to 2. However, when we're giving breaths, we give a puff. Obviously we're not focused too much on breaths, but I do want to note that we give them a puff instead of a full breath. So I think that's an important thing to note. When we are giving CPR to a child, depending on their size, so obviously a bigger child or an older child, you could use 2 hands if you needed to get that strength. However, most toddler-aged children and smaller children, we will only use 1 hand. It just is less, we don't need to use 2 hands, and it gives us a bit less power, so we're not hurting them too much rather than doing good. So it's good to use 1 hand when giving CPR to a child, and then obviously for an adult it's 2 hands. Okay, so I talked about the different how many hands we use for different age groups. So I just wanted to quickly show you, obviously we went over the 2 hands for an adult, but I just wanted to quickly show you that when we use one hand, it's exactly the same, except we're not using the power from the other hand as well. So you're just doing the same thing, and it's just obviously less power. So it's not hurting them anywhere near as much. So I just wanted to quickly show you that so you got a bit of an idea of what I meant by one hand. Okay, so I'm gonna go over a bit of an overview of how we give CPR to infants, which are really little bubs, and how we can best hold them and that sort of stuff. I've got Pooh Bear here, he's gonna help me out. Yep. So the best way I find to hold them, many people can do many different ways. It's really up to how it's comfortable for you, but I like to have my knee up like this, so I have somewhere to rest my arm so my arm doesn't get tired, or I can use a table or something similar like that. And then I'm going to put their head and I'm going to hold their head like this, and their legs will be spread over my arms, if you can see that. And then what we're going to do is, obviously we talked about the 2 fingers, and we're going to use our compressions like that, and it just means we get a lot less tired, and we have something that supports the head and all that sort of stuff for the infant, and they're a lot more comfortable, and you're a lot more comfortable, and it's more efficient for the CPR that you're giving them. Okay, so to summarize a bit of all that we've gone over, I want you to have all of this written down somewhere. If it's in your notebook, that'd be great, but if not, if it's just on a piece of paper, that's okay. But I want you to have written down the 30:2 ratio and a bit about what it means in your own words, however you want to remember it. I also want you to write down how many hands we use for an infant, a child, and an adult. And I also want you to write down how many cycles we do within 2 minutes. So that would be 5 to 6 cycles within 2 minutes. I want you to have that written down, and also just write down one of the 2 songs that I spoke about. So either Another One Bites the Dust or Staying Alive. Either one, just write down one of the songs so that you know if you need to practice, that's the song that you can go to. And I think I just want you to write down a little bit about why we do CPR. So in your own words, from what you can remember, just write down why we give CPR and how it helps in that sort of situation. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a bit of a practical exercise to go away with. I'm not going to do it in front of you because that would be just really boring, but I want you to grab a pillow from your room. It's really simple, kind of feels strange, but it's, trust me, a really good skill to have. So I want you to grab your pillow, take it to your room, get your phone out, get your laptop out, whatever. Set a 2-minute timer, and if you want to play the song to get an idea of what kind of speed you're going for, you're more than welcome. And then I want you to time yourselves and try and get those 5 to 6 cycles. Don't go too fast. I don't want like 7 or 8 cycles, and don't go too slow. So we don't want 3 or 2 cycles because that would be too slow. So we're going to try and get smack bang in between those 5 to 6 cycle marks. So if you guys can go away and do that and write down all those notes that I gave you before, that's all I want you to get out of this lesson. I just want you to get a bit engaged. In this lesson, you've been taught a bit about CPR and a bit more of an introduction, and you've been given a practical exercise to go away with. If you've got any questions or anything like that, maybe write them down. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and give it a go. Let me know how you do, and yeah.